Speak now to IEC Officer Masego Sheburi. Good evening. So thank you so much for your time. I think you probably heard what Siviwe Gwarube of the DA said, basically that the Constitutional Court said that the timetable should remain the same. There was absolutely no reason to change the candidate cutoff, which was the 23rd of August. So why are you reopening the candidate list?
Good evening, Sedi. I think the representation mischaracterizes the order handed down by the Constitutional Court. The court said the proclamation of the 3rd of August by the minister is set aside. The net effect of that is that the voters' roll is reopened. The court further went and said the timetable as it exists now is preserved. However, once a new proclamation is issued, the Commission must amend the timetable where it is necessary for the conduct of free and fair election. The basic reasons that the Commission has reopened the timetable are as follows. The new date on which we register voters triggers a new voters' roll for the election. And you can't then honor the political rights only partly, because the reopening of the voters' roll means that there may be persons who've recently attained the age of majority who may now register as voters. But on the logic of the DA, that would mean that those people can be voters, but they cannot stand for political office as candidates. And we think that is limiting the rights and political rights of citizens in a very irrational manner.
Why not then just open up for those people in that category, those that have just turned 18 and those that didn't actually register prior to this but have now decided to not only register but also stand as candidates? Surely it's a lot less laborious than opening up the whole process.
Except that there may be people who did not stand for office who now exercise that election to stand for office. Similarly, if you run a new registration process, there is a risk that among the 78,000 candidates that we currently have on our system, some may go and update their details, some may re-register anew, and what that means is that we must drop them as candidates because there is a mismatch between their registration now after the registration weekend on the 18th and 19th, and the status as it was held in when we closed the candidate nomination on the 23rd. Similarly, we know that there are people who have registered after the 23rd who we had disqualified or were going to be disqualified as candidates. Those persons are now entitled to stand as candidates. So to do it piecemeal will be to impact voters and people who want to hold office in an uneven manner, and we don't think that would stand legal challenges and legal scrutiny.
We know that the ANC, a number of their candidates did not make the original deadline. We also know about the UDM. I wanted to ask you, do you at the IEC have a full list of how many people or parties actually did miss the deadline? Are you able to give me more details beyond just the ANC and some parts of the UDM?
There are in excess of 200 political parties that have submitted lists of candidates. Because we have not disqualified any of them, I am unable to quantify that as we speak. However, an indicator in the meeting that we had with political parties this morning, we had about 15 political parties represented. Only 4 parties disagreed with the amendment to the timetable as authorized by the Electoral Commission. However, let me hasten to add that this is not just a numbers game. It is not about the number of parties that support or the number of parties that do not support. Ultimately, we must interpret the order of the court properly and give effect to that order. We think by our interpretation, we have done that. We accept that there are varying views, and it may be best that those are tested in the electoral court so that we can have clarity on this and other matters. Just as a side matter, when we closed candidate nomination on the 23rd of August, a few days thereafter, the ANC wrote to us, including a legal letter, requesting that we open candidate nomination. And the commission refused because that would have been amending the timetable in an ad hoc manner that does not facilitate the freeness and fairness of elections. So it would be disingenuous to characterize the decision of the commission as favoring one or the other political party.
So what I'm hearing is that the Constitutional Court decision, which basically found that the minister's proclamation of the election date was also invalid, has allowed you to sort of rejig, reopen and reorganize your timetable somewhat. Am I correct in my understanding? Mr. Sheburi, are you still with us? Oh, unfortunately, we have just lost that interview. Another important thing that came out of the briefing this afternoon is that special votes are going to become even more important. So it'll be very interesting to hear in the next 7 weeks or so before the elections are due to happen, if more people might be eligible for special votes, which might mean that we cut down those queues, which of course is a concern with the pandemic still with us. That, of course, was Masego Sheburi, the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer.